Imagine waking up to discover someone else used your body while you were away, leaving behind evidence of a life you don't remember living. For those with dissociative identity disorder, this isn't a nightmare, it's Tuesday. I once interviewed a woman with DID who told me she'd discovered a wedding ring on her finger one morning. Apparently, one of her alters had gotten engaged. She had no memory of meeting the man, falling in love, or accepting his proposal. Can you imagine that? Finding out you're engaged to someone you've never met? I've always been drawn to experiences that most people would consider, well, unusual. My curiosity has led me to psychopaths, extremists, and now to the complex world of dissociative disorders. But this time, I wanted to go beyond interviews. I wanted to understand what it might be like to live with multiple identities. So I decided to conduct an experiment. For 1 week, I would attempt to live as if I had dissociative identity disorder. Now, I need to be absolutely clear. I know I cannot truly experience DID. It's a complex condition that typically develops from severe childhood trauma as a protective mechanism. I don't have alters, I don't dissociate. This was merely an attempt to gain some tiny fragment of insight. I consulted with 3 psychologists who specialize in dissociative disorders, and 2 individuals who live with DID. They helped me create a framework for my experiment. I would develop 4 distinct alters with different names, personalities, preferences, and even handwriting. I would set up triggers that would prompt me to switch between these identities. My primary identity would be myself, John. Then there was Alex, a confident, somewhat brash character who loved spicy food and action films. Maya was artistic, quiet, and preferred vegetarian meals. Sam was analytical, precise, and had a passion for classical music. And finally there was Taylor, who was childlike, playful, and loved sweets. The first few days were predictably awkward. I'd set alarms at random times, and when they went off, I'd switch to whichever alter was scheduled next. I'd change my posture, my speaking patterns, even my food choices. I left notes from one alter to another, explaining what had happened while they were away. On day 2, I woke up to find that Alex had ordered an extremely spicy curry the night before, leaving my actual self to deal with the consequences. I also discovered Maya had started a painting in my living room that I had no idea how to complete. The strangest part wasn't pretending to be different people, it was the disorienting feeling of returning to find things changed. Even though I knew exactly what had happened, there was something profoundly unsettling about seeing evidence of activities I didn't remember doing. By midweek, I introduced the experiment to my interactions with others. I warned a few close friends that they might be meeting different versions of me. Their reactions ranged from amusement to concern to fascination. My friend David met Sam for coffee, and later told me it was uncanny how different I seemed, more formal, sitting straighter, using more precise language. It was like talking to someone else wearing a John suit, he said. A particularly awkward moment came when Taylor emerged during a professional phone call. I suddenly found myself speaking in a higher, more enthusiastic voice and using simpler language. The confusion on the other end of the line was palpable. I quickly had to switch back and explain I was feeling unwell. The turning point came on day 5. I had been Maya for several hours, working on her painting and listening to ambient music. When my alarm indicated it was time to switch to Sam, I felt a strange reluctance. I had become invested in Maya's project and didn't want to abandon it mid-process. For a brief, disorienting moment, I experienced what I can only describe as a conflict between identities, not real alters of course, but between the roles I had created. I felt protective of Maya's work and simultaneously pulled towards Sam's scheduled activities. Standing there, brush in hand, I had a sudden, overwhelming realization. If my simple experiment could create this mild sense of internal conflict, how infinitely more complex must the reality be for those who truly live with DID? That evening I spoke with one of my DID consultants about this experience. She explained that what I'd felt was the merest shadow of the complex internal system that develops in DID. Imagine that conflict you felt, but multiply it by 100, remove your awareness of the other parts, add in time loss, and layer it with trauma responses. She described how alters aren't roles or performances but distinct identity states with their own memories, preferences, and sometimes even different physiological responses. Some people with DID experience different allergies, medication responses, or even visual acuity between alters. I realized then how superficial my experiment was. Like trying to understand blindness by wearing a blindfold for a week. You might learn something, but you always know you can take the blindfold off. As the week progressed, I began to notice subtle changes in how I viewed identity itself. We tend to think of ourselves as singular and consistent, but even neurotypical people contain multitudes different aspects of personality that emerge in different contexts. The difference, of course, is that most people experience these variations with continuity and awareness. There's no amnesia, no distinct separation between these aspects of self. What struck me most was the exhaustion. Constantly monitoring myself, switching behaviors, and trying to maintain the narrative threads between my alters was mentally draining. And this was just a simulation, a pale imitation of the real experience, without the underlying trauma or genuine dissociation. As my experiment came to an end, I reflected on what I'd learned. First and foremost, DID is not a performance or a curiosity, it's a sophisticated coping mechanism developed in response to overwhelming circumstances. The fragmentation of identity serves as protection when integration is too painful or dangerous. Second, living with DID requires extraordinary strength. The individuals I consulted with navigate a complex internal and external world every day, often while hiding their condition from others due to stigma. And finally, I learned that empathy has limits. We can try to understand experiences different from our own, but some things must simply be respected rather than simulated. If you found this exploration interesting, please consider subscribing to see more attempts to understand the extraordinary diversity of human experience. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and check out my video on the strange world of extreme empaths. Because in the end, it's our curiosity about each other that connects us, even when our experiences couldn't be more different.